I'm not alone when I say that I don't think we'll ever get anything quite like War 19 again. I served as a field artillery crewman from early on. After Jade, I didn't bog myself down in the clan drama or the public outroar that occurred even. I just fought on. Maybe if there were more of us who just buckled down and did their job, we might have avoided all the suffering. War 19 was quite when War 20 came along, and I volunteered for that, and the one after that, and the one after that. I think I can safely say that after all my years of service, there won't ever be quite anything like War 19 again.
My good friends, for the 19th time in our history, a senator has returned from the north to bring peace with honor.
The situation here is dire at Whitechapel, but I think morale is holding pretty well despite the circumstance.
I'm personally switching to Colonials for the sake of my own mental health.
So with a heavy heart, and with Colonials threatening to conquer Farranac completely, the WNS launched a Ballistic Rocket.
Once Kingston was taken, we fired upon the Gallows Town Hall, destroying the last town the Warden held in the region.
It just confirmed the first battle tank ever in the Foxhole War.
Literally hundreds of artillery, howitzers, and mortar shells were rained down upon that house.
So we had basically everywhere fights, and we had no information about the numbers or where is the main force.
The havoc of just bombardment and gas attacks and APC rushes.
We stand 2 years after the end of hostilities. Both nations have shifted their resources from destruction to construction. A burgeoning sector as we've seen from the revamping of towns all across Seaver. A leap in science today, but with renewed tensions between nations as the power of the rocket is revealed. Neither backs out as a call to arms rings at an unprecedented rate.
Flash. The Valayan Republic has cut off diplomatic ties with Siva.
After the treaty ending the 18th conflict, Siva was divided between the Wardens and the Colonials along the River Mersey, the middle regions of Endless Shore, the Deadlands, and the Farranac coast. At the onset of war, the Warden battle plan was to take the entirety of Farranac with 82nd Red Corps, the Anzacs, the Foxhole War Legion, and the Higara Defense Force.
We had the DR go straight towards where the plan was, south of River Mersey, and the infantry was at Husk Hollow. FFL went over to Winged Walk, they took the other side really easy, and they grabbed a CV. At the same time, there was
22 ACR, 12 DK soldiers versus 17 ACR in that Sickle Hill battle.
On the north side of Jade Cove, it's immediately an uphill battle. There's a steep grade that you have to push up, and by the time we were pushing up it was getting really late into the day where people had to start logging off, and because of that we didn't have an opportunity to fortify our gains, and the next day we lost Jade Cove.
The Colonials fighting in Sickle Hill would find themselves cut off from the south by a Warden Navy landing force, and a Dread Corps general push from Husk Hollow. This would not be the only early war disaster to beset the Colonials. A detachment that overextended to Callan's Gate found themselves cut off at the boot, and the Endless Shore was in Warden hands by the end of the month. With so many enlisted conscripts, all the outer regions would find full-scale combat for the first time in the Foxhole Wars. Reports of skirmishing in the Great March, fighting in Reaching Trail, and no ranks in the Orebreaker Isles.
We were just doing a routine check on the archipelagos just to make sure that the newbies there were doing alright at least. The infantry on the main island Orebreaker, they were being pushed back into the town hall at the Ides, and they were about to lose the town. When we came to the Ides with, I want to say 10 of our squad members, narwhals, and regular Navy men, we saw the havoc of just bombardment and gas attacks and APC rushes, we knew that we had to help in some way. So what we did was we had our narwhals spearhead the front for the newbies, while we had our Navy men try and attack their backlines with barges. It was a brutal fight.
Regrouped and having recovered from their initial defeats, the Colonials went on the offensive on day 36. With the use of the armored car, they re-established themselves in the southern part of Farranac on the mouth of the Jade Cove. What had been hoped to be an easy victory, however, ground to a halt. The siege of Jade Cove had begun.
I came when the Jade Cove was on the attack. I joined them, and we had our ACs there, the FMG, and we had our front at the Winged Walk that was pushed by a group of collies. McCarthy Fields from the east. McCarthy is also from Kura Lushlands from the south, and at the Bleeding Ward. So we had basically everywhere fights, and we had no information about the numbers or where is the main force. We had a lot of people holding Jade Cove. They tried always to push into Jade Cove.
They charged us with pure infantry and barraged us with howitzers. They made it up to the rock, and they kept the fighting there for a while.
We had a defensive spearhead led by Von Klaus and I believe Grumpy Burrito. And they were holding out the best they could at Jade Cove, between supplying it navally and by land, and supplying soldiers via the sea to the backlines.
The Colonials pushed across the River Mersey and the Winged Walk by day 54, capturing Husk Hollow, Terra, and shelling the town of Mara from across the river. Meanwhile, in the Deadlands, the Wardens were making a break for their own, crossing into Bryan Glen and pushing west, flanking into the southeast portion of Farranac, the Snag.
On day 4, we went and took the Snag forts and pushed the road south of Manches, and that enabled the Jade Cove to push back out and resecure the southern part of Farranac, which was hard for us to do at first.
Once we took the River Mersey and pushed across the other side of the bridge, we met up with the rest of the WN clan members and 82 DK, and then once we hit Cora's last land, that was when we met up with FFL.
I was there, they had came to Liberation Street, and I could immediately tell that if we didn't do something about taking him out of Liberation Street, that we were going to have a problem in the long run, and we weren't able to muster up enough people to take care of it, and we lost Farranac Coast.
After 2 months of constant fighting, from the start of the siege of Jade Cove to the end of the fight for Farranac, 28,000 people from both sides would lie dead. As the fighting in Farranac wound down, activity ramped up in other fronts. With the endless shore secured, the Wardens pushed into the Umbral Wildwoods, securing territory along the strands and cutting off the region from resupply. A costly affair, leaving 24,000 dead on both sides. They would also begin probing attacks into the Heartlands.
And then we pushed into Westgate.
The push into Westgate would come in a two-pronged attack. To the west, an amphibious landing force by the Warden Navy. To the east, the 82nd Red Corps and the Higara Defense Force.
The push started at Keliad.
Shortly after we took the town hall, about 6 enemy armored cars showed up. The main clan was Cop, though their largest assault was with the 6 ACs, R21, and then it was just really an uneventful push. From there to Lord's Mouth, from Lord's Mouth to the Bulwark Wall.
We operated out of Handsome Hideaway. We set up a fob and the watchtower there, had a few barges transporting troops and items, and we were raiding the logistics lines and their back lines.
Kingstone was the tough nut to crack. The Warden Navy was involved. They originally had that objective.
I was with Warden Navy, and we were over in Kingstone holding out there because Ubel, fighting up the hill from Kingstone to Westgate, is a horror terror, and I hate it.
With Kingstone taken, the northwestern part of the region found itself completely surrounded, and was taken shortly after. Meanwhile, the main Warden army marched past the bulwark and into the southern half of the region.
The major push of the operation was completed within the first 2.5 hours, and then there was a bit of a downtime, and then a secondary push for the last objective. At the end of the operation, we had taken Killian's, Lord's Mouth, Kingstone, the Gallows, and then the final push was on Longstone.
I was gone by the time we got Longstone, but we built defenses all the way from Lord's Mouth, or basically from Killian to Keliad Estate along the road. Made sure our trucks were safe to getting there.
When we finished up, the operation was considered a resounding success.
With Longstone and Alchemio Estate taken in Westgate, and Oleander Homestead in the east, all the colonial logistics centers, the port bases, were cut off.
Live from Press Corps World Headquarters, this is Zero Dark Press Corps. It's a live post-war call-in show, hearing your first-hand accounts and war stories of battles from the previous conflict. So join the Discord right now through the link below. Hop in the general voice channel and get ready to share your stories.
Was it Whitechapel? Oh no, okay, so Oleander. Oh, Oleander. Is this the famous or infamous
Oleander Monster House?
Oleander Monster House.
Yeah, I remember that.
There?
But after just 1 week after the Westgate operation, the Warden Blitz was blunted at the Heartlands, where the Colonials had a reserve of men and materiel. They re-established connection to Westgate by taking the town of Proexy and Oleander Homestead to the east. However, a new invention of war made its debut here, the Safe House.
We were holding that house for so unbelievably long. I would be more than happy to tell you this story. It was a nightmare. Yeah, so you were the ones inside the house.
The Warden Blitz was blunted. Conscripts crashed into walls of double-stacked sandbags, machine gun fire, then to gas grenades and armored cars. In total, 186,467 Wardens and 206,537 Colonials lost their lives, and the weapons of war were only going to get deadlier and more effective. Join us in Act 2, when one such weapon of war was introduced, the battle tank.
You think the Colonials will be able to get some sort of a comeback going on?
Well, from what I know of the Colonials is that they're very stubborn. And I think that them taking back their territory has proven that. However, even though we have been completely pushed out of the Heartlands, and we have been, for the most part, pushed out of Umbral, I don't see them holding that for very long.